Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So good to have all of you join us. Welcome to a very special edition of the Lurie's Creative Hour. It's actually our final one before Lurie's Creative Week. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And we've got like an amazing chat lined up. Today, we're discussing creativity in the digital realm. And I've got three amazing guests. If you can please ask all of you to switch on your cameras and switch on your mics, and we can say hello to everyone. So just, hi Yesh, thank you for joining us. Maybe just as a way of introduction as well, just to introduce all of our panelists, I'm just going to try and see if I can help Camilla
Pritesh,
and Matt.
sorry, this is Matt here. There we go. Wonderful.
There we go. We waited out in initially.
Minor panic beginning to set in. That's all right.
There's always those technical things, but luckily it's very easy to sort out as well. So thank you all for joining us. And a special thank you to everyone on the call who's made it onto the Zoom call, but especially to everyone joining us on Facebook Live. So good to have everyone from across Africa and the Middle East who's made the time to join us. Really appreciate it. To give you a little bit of background in terms of who we have on the screen, we have Matt Ross, who's the Group Executive Creative Director at King James Group. Matt's love of original groundbreaking ideas and technologies have taken him across the globe to create multi-award winning campaigns and products for numerous clients, including the likes of Nike, Volkswagen, Honda, PlayStation, Hasbro, Guinness, and Coca-Cola. We have Camilla Clerke, who's the Executive Creative Director at HelloFCB Plus. Hi, Camilla. This is interesting. So this was, I didn't know this about you, Camilla. After attempting a degree in chartered accountancy, strange one, far removed from what you do today at the University of Cape Town, Camilla got out just in time. I believe that's your words, not ours.
Well, I have to say, they got me out, in all honesty. But, yeah.
Excel spreadsheet.
Thank God. It's our win as an industry. I'm so happy about that. And you completed a diploma in copywriting, starting a career in Johannesburg at Metropolitan Republic. Camilla became acquainted with the all-consuming world of advertising. And then we also have Yesh. I'm hoping I'm not going to butcher your surname, but is it right? Yesh Cader?
100%. Yeah, spot on.
Brilliant. So Yesh Cader, who's the head of digital and e-commerce at Sanlam Investments. Yesh is a multi-local and international award-winning senior digital executive with over 16 years of related experience. Yesh has been involved in online sales and advertising initiatives across 4 continents. He's conceptualized and implemented digital marketing and business strategies on both the agency and the brand side for a number of different brands. So welcome to everyone. Thank you all for joining us.
Pleasure. Nice to be here.
Fantastic. So hopefully we can have a good discussion. So feel free, if you have a question for anyone else in the panel, feel free to ask any of your other panelists any questions. But I'm gonna lead off and maybe just start so that we can get the discussion going. So today we're discussing creativity in the digital realm, and all of you are deeply involved in this space. And maybe starting with you, Matt, tell us more about what it means to be creative in the digital realm, especially considering that digital is an ever innovating and fast moving part of our industry.
Thank you, Pritesh. You know what? We've been thinking and discussing this sort of question for the last 20 years. And every day that question, well, the answer to that question is different. You know, and I think that kind of leads to the point around, for me, from a digital standpoint, mostly it is about speed. And that speed pervades absolutely everything, as in messaging and communications that we can get out to people, the speed of delivery, how quickly we need to adapt to cultural shifts, how quickly we can create cultural shifts, frankly. And, you know, that's why the nub of this conversation, which is something that in a way seems a little bolted on, the planning portion of this is not. If anything, it's become the most important part of what we do. And not only the planning prior to us doing campaigns and communications, but also the forward planning for how we adapt as a campaign rolls out. So, and that speed and accessibility translates into everything from a client relationship standpoint, from the way that we can respond to particular responses to our campaigns. I know we've and that both good and bad. I think that there have been brands and there have been people across the world that have learned very quick and very painful lessons, and there are other people who and brands who've managed to really harness the opportunity that digital provides for us.
So it's a good point that you've made about brands learning in terms of this space, how quickly any of the messaging they have actually reaches the end consumer, and how sometimes you have the wrong messaging and there's nothing you can do to actually get it out there to the consumer itself. And once it's there, it lights up a whole storm as well. But Camilla, for you, in terms of being in this digital space, what does it actually mean, and how can we be creative in an ever-changing space like this?
Oh, I mean, I think digital has changed the way we work exponentially. I think it's allowed us to work with an incredibly diverse mix, from sort of South Africa to Africa and the globe. It's created heaps of efficiencies. So to Matt's point, the constant in-stream of data means we're always able to optimize, and we're always able to try and push the creative to a level where it truly resonates with the user. It's completely changed the way we communicate with people as well. I think customization is obviously a big thing. And the more you understand your audience, the better you can customize a message. So it's allowed us to be incredibly personable, and it's allowed us to work from home, which has, I think, broadened people's headspace, and allowed us to come up with sort of more interesting ways of communicating. But it's completely changed the landscape of the industry. I mean, I remember putting my first TV ad out there and just going, oh shit, how's it going to do? The difference with digital is you put the piece of content out there, if it resonates or not almost instantly, and you've got to optimize it according to what the audience feels sort of works. So it becomes a bit of a symbiotic relationship there. But yeah, it's every day there's something new, hey? Especially with Facebook. One day there's a 20% rule and the next day there's not. I mean, it's hard to keep up.
Well, and I guess this is why we love it so much, is because there's no time to get bored. There's constant innovation, which means you're continuously just planning ahead and trying to do something different. Yesh, from your side, because you're on the Sanlam side, but still very much entrenched in the digital space and doing all this for Sanlam as a brand. Especially from the brand side, what is your outlook and view in terms of how you use digital and how it's ever changing?
It's definitely, to echo Camilla's point, it's moved away from being, I guess, something which one would bolt on, but it's become something that's a lot more, I think, critical to any sort of creative piece. That adage, or that age-old saying of, digital is the future, is sort of just completely gone. It's now become exactly the present, exactly what we do now. We've obviously adapted what we do on the Sanlam side significantly to sort of align more towards, I guess, digital assets. Again, to Camilla's point around, things are changing. Once you put things out, you can optimize, you can tweak. So I guess in the digital space, you can say that the margin for error has somewhat widened significantly, because if you make a mistake, you can easily go back and upload and tweak and customize. Obviously, in the old traditional sense, you can't. But thankfully, we've got less and less of that happening nowadays. But I guess everything that we do on the Sanlam side is very much with a digital first approach. Obviously, with the rest of the traditional media now being more of a supportive act, but which is really good, given that budgets are now shifting more towards digital as well. So we're enjoying it.
Great. I also want to say hello. The innovation in digital has allowed us to have these webinars and have people to join us. So I want to thank just a few of the people. Apologies for not being able to mention all of your names, but everyone in Zoom, I have Apinda Mpako, thank you for joining us. Carla Slater, Derek Coles, Harvard Let's Swallow. We have Terry Levin from this community. Good seeing you, Terry. Thanks for joining us. And Zainab as well, just a few of the people. Thank you for joining us and being part of this discussion. One of the challenges I would see in the digital space is planning, because you have to have some pretty serious planning skills to be able to plan in a world where the technology is changing and where the environment is so dynamic. Matt, for you, how important is planning, and how do you plan in a digital world to ensure success of any of the campaigns that you work on?
Well, I guess it starts at that original adage of what a plan is. Mike Tyson said it best, I guess. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So it's no different. You can plan to within the inch of your life with regards to a campaign. And, as Camilla said, once it's out there, the land and the ecosystem changes so quickly that you need a new plan on the fly, almost on an hourly basis. So, our planning almost comprises, I suppose, two core points. One which is the initial planning, and that's the best case scenario, and that's how we'd love a campaign to roll out, how we'd love the reactions to roll out, we'd love the responses to roll out, etc. But almost more importantly, the forward planning on how we adapt. The plan to adapt away from the plan is more important. I don't know if we'll kind of get into that, but one of our campaigns, Ukshonga Kwelanga, which is a few years old now, that was a perfect example of that, because we had to work within the bounds of, at that time, what Facebook had confined us to from amount of people per WhatsApp group, or an allowance. And we actually had to run multiple WhatsApp groups simultaneously across a single narrative, which was hugely challenging, and we didn't realize it was going to be as successful as it ended up being. But once we realized that the responses were beginning to come in and the uptake was so great, all of a sudden you're now pushed into a room where you've got no plan. So we learned a hell of a lot from that, being both forward planning as well as that kind of initial structure, and then just being as agile as you possibly can. And crucially, having the clients that understand that, and Sanlam are very definitely those, and they're the more progressive, I think, of those sorts of clients. But also, most importantly, having the people in the room who technically understand what they're doing, and also understand how quickly to kind of navigate through that.
And Camilla, on your side, what are your thoughts on the importance of planning, and do you have a different process from maybe some of the insights that Matt shared?
Planning is critical to the digital industry. I would say we spend 70% on planning and 30% on the creative execution. Ultimately you come up with a big idea, which sort of stems from a real human insight, and you get very excited about it. But ultimately, that idea has to be put across on a Facebook post that the audience you hope will see. And if not, how are you going to give them a second chance and a third chance? And then if they do click on that ad and try and find out more, how are you going to retarget? So, it's a massive moving ship. For every digital campaign we put out, so let's say it's running for about 6 months, you're putting out multiple phases, multiple iterations of content in all different specs and sizes to multiple different audiences. So yeah, I think the planning for me as a creative is the most nerve-wracking part. I, thank goodness, have an incredibly talented team of people who try and leave me out of it as much as possible, because I'm quite known for messing up the plan. And then again, the importance of clients being on board and clients working within this more agile headspace is imperative. More often than not, we get everything approved right up until the last point, but suddenly something will change and you've got to very quickly WhatsApp a client and they've got to give you permission to go live or go ahead with a post on that particular day. So we come up with great plans. Let's say 70% of the time, it kind of works, but more often than not, you're adapting as you go. It's a huge thing to organize. Let's just say I have huge respect for project managers.
No, I think that's a good insight as well, is that plans need to be adaptable. They need to change, and it's something we'll come to later on. But maybe from Yesh, from your side, one of the things that I'm getting quite strongly from both Matt and Camilla is the importance of partnerships in the planning process. Because it's not necessarily just a monadic process that you do on your own, but it really is a process that involves a number of different people. So from the Sanlam side, as a brand having to work with the agency, how important is the partnership and being able to go about a plan that's really mutually decided instead of one that just one party has decided on?
I think there's definitely a symbiotic relationship between the brand and the actual agency that work on any sort of creative campaign. From our side, though, it is driven very much from a business objective perspective. So what are we trying to achieve as a brand? That then filters down to the agencies. Again, we have learned in the past that it's very important to ensure that all players are in the room. So that planning stage is exceptionally important, whether it's a media side, offline, online. Have all parties in the room, so again, to ensure that whatever the outcome is, again, the business outcome can be achieved based on what these different parties are actually going to be bringing to the table. And I guess the biggest component, I think, when looking at any sort of plan as well, is looking to the past, looking at what's worked. Obviously, studying the data, studying the analytics, and that's a big part of what we do. So it from the business side, it informs a lot of the brief that we as brand take to the agency. We want this to happen, we don't want this to happen. This has been our experience on this particular campaign. So it goes a lot deeper than simply looking at the high level reporting that one gets during campaign. But the post-mortem, post any campaign, one sits down and actually deep dives into the actual analytics, looking at creative, which one works, which didn't, looking at audiences, ensuring that the buckets of data that we pull are actually able to inform what we do moving forward. So it's less of, wastage in that regard. So everything that we do moving forward is a lot more targeted, a lot more based on actual insights rather than, dumb luck or thumb sucking. So planning is massively important. I can't underestimate it, but again, it is a very much a symbiotic relationship between all parties.
I want to focus on a point that you mentioned, Yahish, and that was specifically in terms of having to look at the data and having a look at the research in terms of how our campaigns come. I think, being in the innovation space, one of the things that I've seen many, many times is that because things are moving so quickly and technology is moving so quickly, a lot of brands, a lot of individuals sometimes will not look at historical data, look at the past and plan based on that purely because we're moving so fast, and you lose some valuable insights. Matt, from your side, how important is it to actually, in this planning process, especially in the digital world, to have, and especially because things move so fast, how important is it to look at past case studies, to look at historical examples of success before putting your plan in place?
It's a tricky question because I don't think it necessarily holds true for every facet or every type of campaign. We are first and foremost, obviously, as everybody knows, a creative agency, and so we sell ideas. That is essentially our output to our clients, and those ideas grow their businesses. So from a purely creative standpoint, when I look through that lens, we don't. We want something that's totally different and it lands unexpectedly in the market, so that we arrest people's attention and people are interested in it and they interact with it. But that's the creative side. I think on the other side, which is the implementation side and the way of us rolling things out and being able to, as Camilla and I think everybody has actually said, and Yish as well, how we are adaptable and the actual tactics of it, the best placed tactics to do and to communicate and use and utilize communication. That's a whole different story. So very definitely, over the course of the last 10 years, we have drawn upon previous campaigns from a tactical standpoint to very definitely understand what best works, how it best works, what platform it best works on, what channel it best works on. So those are the kind of two demarcations, certainly not necessarily from a creative standpoint, because we want something fresh and new, and that's what our clients demand from us. But on the tactical side, very definitely.
And Camilla, on your side, do you echo Matt's sentiment that from a creative perspective, research is not as valuable, but from an implementation perspective, it seems to be something that's core and really, really still important. Is that something that you're seeing in your business as well?
We try and look at the data from every angle. If anything, we try and put it, right into the briefing process up front. all the way through to the creative idea and ultimately sort of optimization, and then where we're moving forward with the brand. I think from a creative point of view, obviously we want to put something out that is provocative and fresh, but especially when it comes to behavior change, we do lean on data a lot. So, you know, I think it's how you take data and you pull out key insights from it. So in previous campaigns, we will go into what kind of comments are we receiving on Facebook? You know, what is the general context around how, you know, these individuals feel right now? And a lot of our insight comes from that. So that insight then informs our creative thinking. So it's backed up by data. And then when it comes to implementation, we do sort of reporting sessions with our clients on a monthly basis just to see how the audience are responding to creative on what element, you know, and it can be sort of the smallest thing. So carousel ads for this particular audience with this brand are doing much better at video. And we try and work out exactly why that would be, which is sort of the inside part of it. But because it's so different for every audience and every client, it is something that we truly sort of lean into. And yeah, we try to make it part of every part of the execution, you know, from idea through to implementation.
Yes, one of the things that I've been chatting to a lot of different people, and I think because of the challenges of 2020 and how, I mean, there was a huge chunk where we didn't know what was happening, and we're all implementing stuff right now and trying to do things. Yes, is there really time to plan? Does that time exist, and is it really as important, or is it really just about let's try and figure out what we can do and just execute?
You know what? I think this year it's taught a lot of people a lesson. Obviously, whether it's a brand side or client side. I mean, we had massive plans for Sanlam, I guess, bigger than were actually publicized for this year. And of course, once COVID struck, once lockdown struck, everybody was negatively impacted. And of course, we had to simply stop and adjust, and we had to almost re-engage within the space of a few weeks. People working from home. Access to agency and creative and so on was diminished. Budgets were cut as well, and I guess that ability to almost be responsive and dynamic in terms of what's happening and adjust your brand accordingly. That's something which I think we almost took to quite effectively. And again, it speaks to the strength in both your internal teams, whether it's digital and marketing, and of course your supporting agencies. I think the synergy between the different parties was I think crucial in terms of actually getting ourselves out there, and actually adapting positively to what was happening. But yeah, in terms of timing now, I think in this world where, I mean, you've seen that saying on that Facebook meme, or that keeps on getting shared, that COVID-19 had the biggest impact in any business's digital transformation. I mean, that's 100% true. So I think the time periods in the past where, you know, one would have, you know, 3 to 4 weeks to, you know, scope and plan and test, that's now almost been diminished to you know, you need to start getting stuff out there, because the online competition in terms of what people are seeing is now a lot more intense than I guess it was about a year ago. Everyone's now competing for the same eyeball, same attention span, because people are spending a lot more time online. So yeah, I think less planning, unfortunately, but hopefully less effective planning. But one has to be adaptive and so on.
Okay, so less planning, but if I hear you correctly, still absolutely important as part of the process.
100% critical, yeah. I think it's more just a function of the
so as we
time allowed, yeah.
Oh.
That's fine. That's
perfect. But, and I think that's so true. One of the things that we try to highlight as well is that you will never have enough time. It's just not something that you're going to have, and there are various factors that are part of it. This year it's COVID, next year it'll just be, it's a really busy year, who knows what it is. But if you don't take the time to actually thoroughly outline where you're going to go, even if it's a rapid planning process, you actually will not be able to execute with excellence. And speaking about executing with excellence, Matt, as we've chatted in terms of the importance of planning, you know, you have some amazing campaigns that's out there. And I think from both yourself and Camilla, what I'm really keen on, and Matt, starting with you again, tell me about some campaigns that you're absolutely proud of, and how important the planning process was in actually delivering those campaigns.
Well, I mean, I think I need to acknowledge Yaish in the room, and you know, this is something I've thought about a fair bit. And you know, out of our wonderful raft of clients, we have a Sanlam, I think, are, if not the most progressive, because they understand the value of a brand in a financial services category. You know, when there's so much homogeneousness or homogeny that exists across the stable, that a brand is one of the things that can truly differentiate you. So, you know, they tend to be a lot braver in the digital space than other brands, certainly other financial brands, which are a little bit more promotionally focused. And I think, you know, there's something to be said for the difference between persuasion and promotion. And typically digital has kind of erred toward the more promotional side of things. Whereas persuasion is something that happens over a long period of time with a lot of activity. So, you know, campaigns like Conspicuous Savers, as an example, that we did with Casper Nieuwest was a perfect example of the sort of planning there. I mean, we had to convince him to take over his Twitter feed, you know, which is, and that includes his, you know, he includes his DM messaging within there. So he was giving us access to something that was highly private. And he actually ended up giving access to one of our creatives clients, and she was the only one that's ever had access to his Twitter feed, because that was all about planning. That was all about doing things at particular times in order to raise, I suppose, raise the interest of his followers, so that we could then reveal at the back end of it that it was all that was actually all a campaign. Oksana Kwelanga, another good example, which we kind of touched on a little bit. I mean, the fact that I had Aviv Wheel from Facebook, their creative shop, give us a call and say to us, "What have you done? You have broken us." And he was getting calls from Facebook International asking about the South African campaign that was essentially working its way around what WhatsApp would allow from a WhatsApp grouping number perspective. You know, they only had 200 at the end. We had 60, 70,000 people actively consuming that WhatsApp social media drama. So we had 200 divided by 60,000, you know, almost 300 groups going simultaneously, which is a huge ask. So the planning portion of it was so important. And just to echo what Camilla said, you know, if you don't have that planning in place, Oksana would have been a disaster. Conspicuous would have been a disaster. So the agility and the flexibility and the ability to be able to move. And I'll be honest, people of my age are typically a little bit more set in their ways. Whereas people, you know, and younger people kind of coming through that a little bit more digitally native than we've ever been, have that ability to be hyper flexible, to be able to move. And that's such a core part of it, of being on a team, on a planning team, to understand how these things change and work. I hope that's answered your question.
It does. And Camilla, on your side, I mean, campaigns you've been proud of, and how important has planning been in delivering those campaigns?
Yo, you know, I can honestly say with some of these campaigns, I can understand why this industry drinks a little bit more alcohol than other industries, because it's pain like none other, but incredibly rewarding. Because ultimately you can see it working. So you can see the behavior change almost immediately. And I'll take you through a campaign that I worked on recently, which was, it was a very different campaign. I hadn't worked on one like it before, and it ran for 9 months. So it was all about the planning. And if the planning wasn't there, you know, one thing would have been out of kilter, and the whole knock-on effect would have made the entire thing a disaster. So it's a campaign I recently did for Net Florist. Basically, we gave ourselves a pretty engaging task. It's how to get guys to send other guys flowers, you know, in order to open sort of a new revenue stream for Net Florist, which is the kind of campaign challenge that I love starting with, because it's just like, how the hell are you going to do it? But the insight we came up with was that guys like to poke fun at one another and diss one another. I mean, it just goes on nonstop, especially in my office. And it feels like a big topic is sport, you know, so which teams are winning and which teams are losing. And we looked at the English Premier League, which, you know, outside of the UK is most watched in South Africa, which I found quite surprising.
Wow, yeah.
The difference being in the UK, you support the team from where you're from. Whereas here you support whoever for who knows what reasons. I support Liverpool because my folks do, but I mean, nothing to do with being born in Liverpool. So it's quite likely that you would be sort of sitting next to someone who is your opposition. So we came up with this concept called Bouquets for Bros, where we tried to sort of egg guys on to send commiseration bouquets to their mates whose team had lost to theirs. So this is a campaign now that was going to go on for 9 months over the Premier League, which, as you can imagine, such a period of time, the planning is next level. I mean, firstly, so the time frame, it's a long period of time.
Yeah.
Secondly, you know, it's about finding the manpower to do something like that. And manually, that was never going to be an option. So we created a bot that would automatically build banners every time the ref's whistle blew with the score. And it pulled in hashtags and it would join a Twitter conversation that would try and get men to send these bouquets. So, you know, at one point it started to run itself, but then one's got to be very sort of critical on oneself and constantly check in and make sure that things are working according to plan, and how are people resonating with it, and how are they, oh, there it is. And how are they enjoying it? But, you know, eventually you come out on the other end and you see that it has had some behavior change. You know, we actually did do what we set out to do, which is get guys to send flowers to their bros. And, you know, for that, it was entirely worth it. But without serious planning, this thing would have ended up being a dead bouquet outside of a rugby stadium or something. You know, so yeah.
A sad sight, if ever there was one.
I've been on the other side where things have gone dramatically wrong, you know? Yeah.
So maybe speak about that, since we've got you. I mean, have you ever planned and found things have gone completely wrong and then you need to change the plan?
Look, I mean, we've planned an activation to the point of no return, and certain members of the team just didn't pitch up, of the actual sort of activation staff, which meant that we had to put on the outfits, etc., and do the expo. You know, so you've just got to get your hands dirty, really. But yeah, no, things have gone outrageously wrong. Or you put out a message that doesn't quite resonate, you just don't quite hit the mark, got to immediately change it. Or yeah, you'll often find a client's friend's uncle's sort of great granddaughter saw the piece and didn't like it, and suddenly we've got to start from scratch. So, you know, you never know what tomorrow holds.
It's a good point. Yash, I want to give you an opportunity to tell me about a campaign you've been proud of, and how important has it been to actually plan for the success that you've had?
The first thing I guess I do want to mention is that I actually had a bouquet of flowers sent to me when Arsenal lost last year by a mate. It was the most insulting thing ever.
I didn't get anything.
I think I got, obviously we get teased a lot.
Camilla.
We get teased a lot as Arsenal fans, so we definitely can attest to the fact that it does work. On my side, though, I've had the pleasure actually of working with both Camilla and Matt on different campaigns. Camilla during my previous life at Investec, and obviously Matt at Sanlam. And I guess if I touch on some of the campaigns that I probably enjoyed the most, I think on the FCB side, it was probably the Investec Opportunity Knocks and Opportunity Fund campaign with the sort of first-person view of sort of doing a lot of creative stunts and so on. That was really, really fantastic, simply because it sort of it was a bit different from the sort of traditional sales stuff that I was used to back in the day. I guess on the King James side, there's just too many to note. We've obviously launched the Smart Invest campaign that's now, or Smart Invest platform, you know, with campaign that's now been live for about a year. We've shot numerous ads as well. The one that we just finished now, obviously, is the Whole New World, and that was fantastic. You know, with the choir and so on being a bit more, I guess, a bit more optimistic. I think at a time when South Africa probably needed a bit more of, a bit of a boost, and that took intensive planning. So we obviously had the Muhammad Ali Bold and Cautious campaign with King James a couple of years ago. And of course, it was the first time Sanlam Investments particularly had launched a new TV ad. And again, the planning took years. It took an insane amount of time for that one TV ad to actually come out. With King James, we've shot TV ads that never saw the light of day, just simply because there's various reasons and I guess things that change, as you mentioned, that one needs to adapt to. But yeah, I think with the agencies, I guess with the right people in the room, having that business-led objective in terms of what the business is trying to achieve, actually having creative agencies actually help support that and help drive that. One can't necessarily sort of downplay the importance of actual planning. But again, I think in the space that we find ourselves now, that planning time period has gone from yay long, down to sort of being a lot more almost immediate. So yeah, like I said, there's just too many campaigns that I've actually had the pleasure of being a part of.
Have you been involved in the Money Meetups campaign? Is that one of the campaigns you've worked on?
Yes, yeah. So we've had a lot of involvement there as well. The conversations with yourself, that was fun to shoot. There's the money meetups. I mean, that was pretty good for I guess taking financial advice and financial advisors, particularly, and trying to make it a bit more engaging to an audience that is quite, hesitant to approach a financial advisor and actually, discuss their financial needs and discuss what they're looking for. But I guess trying to make the whole topic of financial advice and financial needs analysis and so on, making it a bit more relatable. And that was probably a big challenge for the King James team. And I mean, the Money Meetups campaign has gone phenomenally well. Trying to promote a financial product in this day and age is quite complicated, but thankfully we've got an agency that I think has moved away from trying to punt products, and that's the biggest thing. So again, rather than trying to sell your product, you're rather trying to sell the benefit. I think that's obviously that mindset change to an audience is a really, really important one. As long as the messaging can help resonate with their personal circumstances, it's a lot more effective. But obviously trying to punt, this RA or this product or this life insurance, it doesn't quite work. But again, try to make it relatable to their personal circumstance. I think that's something which King James has perfectly nailed. So yeah.
Great. And Yesh, on your side, have you ever had a plan go wrong? And when it's happened, what have you done?
Again, too many to note. Geez, I thought about this question long.
Me too.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. It's like
I knew.
Doesn't it feel like it's like a job for you? What
I thought about it.
How did you cope?
Thought about it long and hard. I guess during my my agency days, there's obviously been a few, as with all agencies, there's a few ideas that you pitch that you're 100% sure would actually work, and it completely misses the mark, and you get taken to task by clients. On the client side, though, there's a couple campaigns that we had a little bit of misalignment between different parties, and we pushed live and everything's gone live, and completely missed the fact that there's a massive disconnect between, I guess, the creative and the actual conversion and lead side of things. I mean, there are a number of those, thankfully less, happening now. In terms of detail, I don't want to go into detail now. It's quite a sensitive topic, that. But thankfully we learn our lessons, and of course it informs what we do moving forward. So there are a few. I'm not going to lie. There are a few that I sort of had pinned on my my notice board back at the office, that one almost looks towards to almost ensure that when you do something again, make sure that you don't follow these three, or the R3. When in terms of whether it's creative or objectives or communication, massively important between different parties as well. That's what we try to avoid. So it's my wall of shame that I do look at, but thankfully it's to try to keep it down to 3 at least.
I think it's your wall of learning, Yesh. It's your wall of learning.
No, it is.
I have a big wall. It's not
Oh, brilliant. Matt, your wall of learning then, since you came up with the term now. I mean, have there been issues when you've done something, you went, this is going to be amazing, and then just fallen flat? How have you gone forward from there?
Well, let's say 80% of those learning moments are not for this particular conversation, Pritesh, but the 20% that I can draw upon, you know what, I think, and it probably stems a little bit from the misnomer of what digital, we use this term digital, and I've talked about this a fair bit with clients and with colleagues and across the board, anyone who listens to it, frankly. is that when we say digital, everyone has a different view on what that means. And it's actually now everything, absolutely everything is digital. And so what happens with people like myself in the positions that I'm fortunate enough to occupy, is that we end up getting pushed into digital environments and conversations that we know very little about. So one of the stories, and I won't mention names to take Yisha's point, was a big telecoms company in South Africa, and I was brought into a meeting to have a conversation specifically about how our agency was developing a portion of division and a servicing, I suppose, an offering that was going to compete with the consultancies. And we have the ability to sell. And I think half the time I'm wheeled in order to do that. And we were 20 minutes into this conversation, and we were stopped very politely by the business in question. They said, "So we just want to be clear. Are you guys going to be competing with the consultancies?" And before anyone else could say anything, I had rushed out and gone, "Yes, of course we are." So don't forget that the consultancies around the world are massive global companies with C-suite relationships and have had for many years. And for all intents and purposes, we were laughed out the room. But that said, as fate would have it, a few years back, and this is my wall of learning, is we actually found another way around that particular conversation, something a little bit more accurate to what we were actually trying to do, which was the building of products was a really important part of our suite. But I remember that. I remember learning, feeling highly embarrassed, being turfed out on our ear, but learning so much from that. And I think this is maybe one of the misnomers in the business, that it's so hard to do because no clients of ours want us to make mistakes, and we don't want to be making mistakes with our partners. And to Yisha's point, you learn so much from those mistakes, and some mistakes are big, some are small. And the core part of it is if you're not learning from them and you remake those mistakes, that is what essentially, I believe anyway, is the difference between a great agency and an ordinary agency.
Yeah, and everyone always quotes this example, but the United States Department of Defense, they have a division called DARPA, and their core philosophy is fail faster. You should actually go as quickly into it and embrace an idea and do as much as you can. If it's not meant to be, it will fail, but you fail quick enough to be able to move on to the next thing.
Correct. You take off
the things that are taking way too much of your time. I mean, one of the other things that's useful, speaking about this planning process and running out digital organizations and businesses, is money has to come into it, doesn't it? And money is a scarce resource, and you have to use money to the best of your ability. I mean, Camilla, from an organizational perspective, how important is the financial planning of your campaigns and your initiatives in terms of the overall success?
Well, I mean, I think it's everything. We're given a certain amount of money to achieve some kind of task, which is why we place a lot of emphasis on measurements. So what exactly is our objective? What are we trying to get out of a piece? What is the client's challenge? And, how are we going to go forward and solve it? And then, I think the approach we take now is let's come up with an idea that we feel best would solve it. And then let's use data to put it in the right places so that it's ultimately reaching the right audiences and, making sure we're getting the correct feedback. And then splitting the budget according to what kind of executions we want to do for that. The budget never feels like enough, but I think it's a good idea to know what your boundaries are and create within that. So I'm a big believer in don't give us an open brief, and we come back with a solution and then we look at money. Rather tell us upfront what you sort of prepared to spend on it, what is the desired outcome, and then we know if we've sort of beaten that or not. So, I mean, I spend a huge amount of time with my MD having these kind of discussions. And also, where are we going to invest extra time? What is the purpose of doing so? Is the client aware? And what are we trying to ultimately achieve together? So money comes into every part of the conversation.
And have you ever found, Oh, sorry, go for it. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh, no, I was just saying, let me tell you, money does come into every single part.
Perfect. But and what about from a personal perspective? I mean, again, we are in these organizations, in these businesses, and we're seeing the financial planning process for our campaigns, and we're using it. Do you ever find that there's any learnings that you can apply to your life, or do you suddenly look at this and go, "Wow, there's a lot more of planning that I need to do on a personal level for my own personal financial planning"?
Look, I mean, I'm actually much better at handling the finances of the agency than I am my own. Yeah, no, I think you can completely see how proper planning does allow one to spend a budget wisely, effectively, and efficiently. I wish I did more of that in my own life. I am attempting to, though, because I've been threatened by my partner. But I think what digital has allowed us to do is to keep a check of our sort of personal finances on a daily basis, which is the biggest sort of piece of advice I could give anyone. I was the type of person who would receive a bank statement and put my finger over the end, but just I wouldn't actually know how much money is still sitting in my account, which has obviously gotten me into sort of some extraordinarily bad positions. Yeah. But I think checking in on a daily basis, being able to set myself targets, much like one would do in any campaign, and putting aside money for the things that you ultimately really want to do for the client or for oneself, are all things that one can apply to one's own life. But it's definitely a point I need to work on a bit.
No, look, I feel exactly the way you do. So I relate to so much what you're saying. Yeah, Yash. So the tough questions for you as well. You're on the brand side and a financial brand that is Sanlam. And I think there's always this misconception, because I know it's a misconception, that there must be tons of money around at Sanlam to spend on whatever campaign you want to. But I know you mentioned earlier that there were budget cuts, which everyone's experienced. How important is financial planning in being able to deliver the really important campaigns that you need to deliver as an organization?
I think that it definitely comes back down to having a partnership with your agency. So I guess in my experience, there are no blurred lines. There are no hidden pockets of money that you're sort of keeping aside for in case it actually works well. But it's rather a full comprehensive discussion with your agency in terms of this is the part that we have. These are the desired outcomes. This is what we're trying to achieve. And again, trying to work and I guess optimize that particular pool of money and ensuring, as Camilla says, that you're continuously monitoring it. I mean, in the sort of the digital media side, one's able to optimize if your paid search is not working, down a little bit of that, or if you have banners doing really well on, let's say, a space station network, just push that up. So I guess continuously optimizing. I think in my own personal life as well, in terms of money advice, I guess the one thing that I think we Sanlam are trying to punt really hard on the investment side, particularly on the Smart Invest platform, is I think my piece of advice, which is to pay yourself first. So I guess do that first. Whatever you have left, that's sort of what you live off. It's a bit more difficult on the brand side though. So for me, I find myself very much sharing everything that I have with the agency. This is my entire pot of money. There are no hidden bits and pieces. What is your suggestion in terms of how do we actually make this work best for us? So yeah, I guess for total transparency, and obviously just making them a part of your objective. So again, I guess that alignment is massively important. We want to achieve X amount of sales, or we want to achieve X amount of impressions, or brand awareness, or so on and so on. So again, making that perfectly clear upfront. To ensure that the budget that you do have, the small pot of money you do have, I mean, obviously in this time where budgets are being cut, one has to be a lot more frugal, and a lot more precise. So segmentation becomes massively important as well. So I think, ensuring that your brand or your agency is on side with you as well in terms of what those objectives are, is probably the most important step for me.
And same question asked, Camilla. I mean, from your side, and again, this is what I'm curious about you in a financial organization, and a fantastic one of that is Sanlam. I mean, from a personal side, are you taking learnings from things that you're learning from your day-to-day life and in your day-to-day work life and implementing campaigns into your financial life? And I assume you have access to some amazing advisors where you are.
Yeah, no, we do. We quite fortunate. I mean, the Sanlam has a massive advising network, literally all over the country. And I guess I'm probably more in line with Camilla. So I probably handle the business finances a lot more better than my own personal finances. So, I mean, I'm a big user of the 24/7 app to sort of monitor my my ongoing expenditure and sort of tracking against budget. But I'm not going to lie to you. At the 10th of every month, once my thresholds start being hit, I close the app down. I start hiding the notifications. I don't want to see what's happening. So I should be a lot more strict with regards to what I'm doing in my own personal finances, given that I have access to amazing content writers, amazing people who can sort of draw these algorithms and things for me to sort of help in my own personal life. And I mean, I do use the one which is to pay yourself first. But yeah, I am guilty of exactly as Camilla says, just sort of flicking right in terms of those notifications because you don't want to see it. That being said, it's not sustainable. But yeah, I think it's massively important to check in every single day with regards to your finances, making sure that you are tracking according to what you can afford, not living above your means. That I'm seeing more and more, but in sort of my personal circles as well. But I think getting a lot more people onto these kind of apps where you are tracking your financial, not only your financial wellness, but again your financial ability month to month. So yeah, there's a number of tools. There's just too many. They're all free, so when a guy should just go out there and look for them. They really, really do help.
Yeah, one of the things that I find, nothing beats having another human being to be able to speak to. You know, I love having all digital stuff and we can use that, but also having somebody to be able to sit with and go, wow, look at the data that I'm getting. This is what it's showing where I'm spending my money on. Do you have any other additional advice as well? So I think it's always like a meeting of the two worlds, meeting of the
Exactly.
digital and meeting of the human. And when you find that intersection, that's where the magic actually happens.
I mean, it's a point that I guess was made in the States a couple of years ago when people cotton onto this whole thing of, robo advice, the financial advisor or the personal face-to-face is gone. They built this thing, and I mean, it wasn't as effective as they thought because again, every single human being, particularly when it comes to their finances, needs that personal interaction. So we sort of, I guess, we've learned from their mistakes, and we sort of built this almost bionic space where we are digitizing our advisors because that face-to-face and personal interaction, whether it's via Skype or Zoom or even face-to-face, is massively important. There are certain things that one can do for yourself. That's no getting around that, small investment and so on. But when it comes to more complex stuff, analyzing your entire expenditure, properties, trust, different income, different sources, tax as well, one cannot underestimate or understate rather the importance of proper financial advice. And again, that's where speaking to an actual financial advisor becomes massively important and massively beneficial.
Absolutely. We're almost out of time, but Matt, on your side as well, I mean, financial planning for your campaigns as a business, how important is it? How involved do you get into that process?
You're talking about the agency, you're talking about in a personal capacity?
We'll look at the agency and see if you have any learnings after that, but let's look at the agency first.
Very definitely, and actually the two are kind of I suppose corroborated between, and I'm just listening to what Yeesh and Cam are both saying, and I'll get to the analogy at the end. But from a business standpoint, of course, just to reiterate what Camilla said, I think any creative leader within a business that is divorced from the financial realities of the business is not doing the right job. We are tasked to do famous work for our clients and to make them famous and to grow their businesses off the back of that fame. But similarly, agencies can fall into the trap of becoming self-serving with regards to that, with making themselves famous first, which often puts the financial planning and the financial aspects of an agency on the back foot. And there's a lot of conversation around the correlation between the two. If the work is famous, the money will follow, and that is true in some regards. But in my experience, more often than not, the two are very, very equal. So we draw upon obviously our CFOs and our CEOs and our financial heads and all the rest of it to occupy that and to lead that to a degree. But we're never divorced from it or an understanding from it. And the analogy that I've always made is that that structure from a business standpoint is the same structure you should look at it from your own personal standpoint. You are the CEO of yourself. Let's call it that, for lack of a better word. And I think a large proportion of the world is very good at doing the marketing of themselves. we're on social media and we're projecting a certain look for ourselves, who we are as people. And what a lot of people forget is that that's one role, that's the CMO role, that's the marketing officer role. The other side is the financial role. And, you need to treat yourself as a business in the same way that a business has debt, and a business must service that debt. A business has revenue that it draws upon, and it can't hire over and above that particular revenue. It needs to work with what it has. It needs to invest in itself. And it needs to, and all that ilk. And that was quite a nice analogy in my mind that I made many years ago, which was, well, if you treat yourself and you think of yourself as a business, all of a sudden everything else begins to fall into play, because otherwise you're just marketing yourself. You're not focusing on the other things. So I try to keep it. I'm a simpleton, so I like very simple things that work across a multitude of different things.
That's a brilliant, simple idea. Just treat yourself like a business and then apply the same kind of thing, and you won't go bankrupt.
Yeah, well, some businesses go bankrupt, so.
No, hopefully if you treat yourself like a good business, manage it well, then you're. But thank you to all of you. I mean, we're out of time. Camilla, Matt, Yesh, so enjoyed this chat so much. Maybe just as a parting words, Camilla, how do we keep up with you if we want to find out more about what you're doing?
Well, I guess the socials.
And your handles? I mean, what would
My
be your
handle?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Instagram is probably where you'll see mostly sort of images of my dogs, etc. Facebook, more of the campaign work, and LinkedIn, I think, is the best places to go.
Okay, so we'll search for Camilla Clerke and LinkedIn.
Yes, I wish I just had my handles just on top of mind. But I still have to just compliment Matt. That's definitely quote of the day. Hey, treat yourself like a business.
Not like a business, yes.
That.
And Matt, how do we keep up?
LinkedIn is probably best. Yes, I have children, so I don't have a lot of time to spend sending communications out into the world. So chime me on LinkedIn. I think it's Matthew Strachan-Ross. It's Scottish. Don't judge me.
Perfect. Yesh, how do we keep up with you?
Pretty much exactly the same as Matuko. Panelist on Twitter. It's Twitter.com/Yesh Cader. The same with LinkedIn. I'm a lot more politically insensitive on Twitter than I am on LinkedIn. Yeah, so keep that.
So your Twitter feed's more interesting, Yesh.
So that's what you're saying.
We'll be going there first.
Okay, we'll go read all the interesting stuff in Twitter. Thank you to all of you. Matt Ross, Group Executive Creative Director at King James Group, Camilla Clerke, Executive Creative Director at HelloFCB, and Yesh Cader, Head of Digital and E-Commerce at Sanlam Investments. Really enjoyed this chat. And to everyone that joined, I hope you've got some amazing planning advice and understanding more about the digital world as well. And look out for Luri's Creative Week. That's happening next week from the 16th to the 20th of November. It's going to be amazing, and there's going to be more amazing chats with Sanlam as well. So thank you to all of you. Have a good weekend and look forward to chatting soon and see all of you at Luri's Creative Week.
Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone.